Fine. Good afternoon, everybody. This meeting is being recorded, and today we will be discussing the salient features of the Red-Headed League featuring Sherlock Holmes, a story that was written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, one of the greatest exponents of the genre of detective fiction in English language. Okay, and what made Sherlock Holmes quite distinct compared to all the other, detective works that had gone before him was the personality of the man himself. Not so much as the nature of the mystery that was being discussed, but rather the personality of the central the protagonist, that is Sherlock Holmes himself. Who was presented as this quirky genius who was flawed, and who had a number of faults and weaknesses of his own, but who redeemed himself. Okay, now as you all know, he had a bit of an addiction problem. He was eccentric, but all of this is shown as his eccentricities are shown as things that help him to temper his extremely sharp intelligence. Okay, now Arthur Conan Doyle had really fleshed this character out, and as time progressed, he had given him multiple dimensions to his personality. He gave him a background, he gave him a family, and even today the narrative of Sherlock Holmes persists, and he has captured the imagination to such an extent that the presentations of Sherlock Holmes on screen has been done a number of times. One of the latest was that of Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock, and you also had Robert Downey Jr. who played the role of Sherlock, and all of these. If you notice, it is not, as I told you earlier, the nature of the mystery as much as is the personality of the detective, the protagonist, that comes to the fore, that holds the attention of the people. And in a way, Sherlock Holmes has redefined the way that the detective began to be seen in this genre after him. Okay, then what happened was that the detective became as important as the mystery itself. Okay, so this kind of a cult of the personality, as far as detective fiction was concerned, came to the fore with Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. Understand? And it's about this keen powers of observation, which made him synonymous with somebody who was capable of noticing everything. I'm sure that you would have read a lot of the works that he has written. Now, Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes is relevant not just because it is wonderful work of detective fiction, but also on account of the fact that it gave a rather interesting and unobtrusive picture of the England of the time. Okay, that is the England of the time that was suffering Uh, through huge problems of unemployment. It had issues of gender disparity. It had class struggles, and all of these aspects, were effectively put across. Also, we could see the traces of colonial perspectives that shone through in Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. In that, sometimes some of these antagonists, in one there was this pygmy from one of the lesser known Andamanese tribes who was capable of shooting poison darts at great distances. There was this very disturbed Afghan man. See, those kinds of portrayals that they put across, where the other, that is not only is a person, the antagonist, but the antagonist is an other. O capital other. Okay, so that kind of alienating the things that are unfamiliar, mystifying them, attributing something very unfamiliar to these things were some of the some of the interesting features that you have to glean from reading Shakespeare. Understand? So, and also, there were these beautiful Gothic elements that he introduced. These castles. You have, presentations like in the Hounds of the Baskervilles and so on. Okay, Hound of the Baskervilles. Where some sort of a Gothic element was also introduced. Those sweeping castles and moored lands, and those lonely journeys by train. It gave the kind of the proper atmosphere of the time. So, and also you have and England that was coming to terms with the fact that it was no longer the kind of superpower that it would like to have been, or the kind of let's say classes of people who Holmes interacted with, and who let's say that scripted newer narratives were coming more and more into prominence, because look at the kind of English that Holmes spoke, okay, or the kind of English that Watson spoke, and then you contrast that with the sort of language of Lestrade, the policeman, or any of the shoe shine boys, or people of a certain category that Holmes mixed with, and the way that Watson looked upon the kind of associations that Holmes made with the urchins and so on. And then, of course, there was this very interesting dynamic that existed between Holmes and Watson. See, in a lot of books of science fiction, in a lot of books of these, the detective genre, there is always a sidekick. Even in these television serials, you would have seen doctor medical series, and then somebody will be like, something or the other, of the something or the other, and then somebody will be like, English, please, what are you talking about? And then the person will explain it to that person, simplified, that's actually be done for yourself. Understand? It's done for the sake of the audience. So just as without Watson, Holmes would have been a rather inscrutable person, or somebody that the audience or the readers could not relate to or understand. Okay, so in order to convey the sharpness of his mind in a rather effective fashion, it was very important that somebody of the likes of Watson be with him. Somebody who is not his, intellectual match, because then there would be a perfect understanding between them. Holmes would be like, that man has been to China and, he works with metal. And the other guy would be like, yeah, totally. Okay. So what is the reader going to understand? Right? So in order to prevent that is why we are shown that Watson is not his intellectual equal, that this man is slightly behind him, but at the same time not a total fool. And also the structure of the books are such that it's like Watson goes on these mystery fact-finding missions with Holmes, but he comes down back and writes these down faithfully for the various newspapers and so on, and makes Holmes into a big personality. Understand? And looking at all of those things, people come and want to interact with Holmes even more. So this is the kind of a structure. So if you think about it, not just the protagonist, but all the other supporting figures are equally important. You have the housekeeper, Mrs. Hudson, the house owner, also the landlady, somebody who is a long-suffering figure, somebody who doesn't seem to have a family of her own, who puts up with the eccentricities of this man, and later on, with the eccentricities of his faithful sidekick, Dr. Watson. And this is very interesting dynamic. That is what I was talking about. Interesting dynamic between Watson and Holmes, which is quite ambiguous, in the way that male friendships were dealt with in England of the time. Okay, that is he a companion? Is he a sidekick? Is he a friend? Is he something more than a friend? But at the same time, is he something not all that much more than a friend? All these things are very confusing and very interesting. And what we have a window into is the fact that when Watson falls in love with Mary and wants to marry her, Sherlock is not really very happy with that entire evolution of events. And one might imagine that he's lonely and he had this good friend and he's afraid of losing that friend of his. Okay, so it could be that on one hand, or on the other hand, it could be something more than a friendship. But those are angles that are never explained or explored. They're pretty much left to the imagination of the reader, and that is why in a number of television and cinematic presentations, this particular angle has been often explored, sometimes with a touch of humor. There are also presentations of Sherlock Holmes where it's a woman. I think it's played by Lucy Liu, sorry, where Holmes is actually a woman. Okay, of course, those are multiple interpretations and keeping in, uh, you know, vogue with the sensitivity issues of the time. All of these factors are there. Okay, but anyway, one thing cannot be denied, that the man who lived in Baker Street made a profound impression on the general public as a symbol of intelligence, as a symbol of perception, observation, and the kind of milieu that he occupied was studied with great detail and with great interest, so as to understand the socio-economic, political, and cultural underpinnings of the time. Okay, now that brings us to the Red-Headed League. Okay, so as usual, Watson visits his friend one day and finds that he's talking to a rather well-built, sort of elderly man who has flaming red hair. Okay, and but then Holmes tells him you don't have to go anywhere. Come sit, join us anyway. And the man, initially the red-headed man, is quite apprehensive, but then he kind of accepts it with fortitude and talks to Watson as well, and he tells them the most interesting story. Now, before he does that, Watson tries to employ some of Sherlock's methods in order to find out more about this person. But as usual, he doesn't get to the level of precision that Sherlock Holmes supposedly has. Because Sherlock Holmes says that this man has been to China, he has done manual labor, he takes snuff, he is a Freemason, and he has also done a lot of writing in the recent times. And these people are like, how did you find out all of these things? And then he talks about the color of the ink that was used in the tattoo that is there on his arms. And he also says that your cuff is kind of smooth to one point. After that, it is a bit ruffled. So because of all of these things, I can make everything out. And he simplifies it to such an extent that the man says, "Oh, that is all. I thought you were going to do something miraculous." And with that one statement, Holmes says, "I think we do myself a great disfavor if I try to explain my methods because people seem to imagine that it is so simple." Oh God, it's stuck. Have I not moving at all? You can't hear me or anything like that?
No, ma'am, it's okay.
Yeah? Okay, because I'm just getting a message saying we are not able to hear anything.
Ma'am, you are clear.
Okay, cool. Okay. Hmm. Anyway, so I'm going to continue. Okay. So anyway, so he tells him the most extraordinary story, and this man's name is Jabez Wilson. Okay, the red-headed man, and he says that he is a pawnbroker. Most of his work happens in the evening when people come to pawn stuff. He has one assistant by the name of Vincent Spalding, and then there's also this small girl, 14-year-old girl, who does a bit of cleaning and maintaining the house kind of a thing. So it's a very quiet kind of a setup. The man he had employed was on half wages because he couldn't afford a lot of wages to be paid. And the man just wanted to learn. So he's there, very enthusiastic, very enterprising guy. He takes a lot of photographs and then goes into the cellar to develop those photographs. Those are his only interests. So it's a quite kind of a setup. Now, one day, Vincent Spalding finds an ad that says that on account of the bequest of the late Ezekiah Hopkins of Lebanon, Pennsylvania, USA, there is a vacancy with the League of Red-Headed Men, and there's a salary of £4 a week for very, very minor kind of a job. Okay, and then they are asked to go and meet this person called Duncan Ross. So Vincent Spalding convinces him that he has to apply for this post. It's nothing much anyway, so just go kind of a thing. And he's also enthusiastic because his job business is not doing well. So they go there, and there are lots of red-headed men. There's a sea of red-headed men who have come for the job. But the manager, Duncan Ross, takes one look at this red-headed person and he offers him the job. Now, the story that is given to Jabez Wilson is very simple. There was this man called Ezekiah who was red-headed, and people always make fun of red-headed people. So he was from England. He went to America, made a fortune, and he wanted to give something back to his mother country. So he decided to support red-headed men. Now, this man is not married. Who Jabez Wilson is not married. So, but still, they're like, never mind. This went for the propagation also of red-headed men. But your kind of red does not come, very often. We will give you the job. Now, the job is just this. Every day from I think morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he has to come and he has to write down, copy the Encyclopedia Britannica. Understand? That's all that he's supposed to do. Has somebody raised a hand?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, Anupriya.
Ma'am, actually, the screen was stuck for a few minutes.
Oh, was
Yes,
that the
ma'am.
case with
And
everybody?
Ma'am,
it,
so
for
we
me,
were
it was
not
like
able
that.
to hear
Yeah,
the beginning of the story.
yeah. And
I see.
when it was,
Did you guys get the introduction part?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am, we
ma'am.
did that, and like just 2 minutes before, it just got stuck. Not 2 minutes, just for 1 or 2 minutes, it just got stuck, and we didn't
Okay.
hear a
Is
lot
that
of
the case
things.
for everybody? Gauri?
No, ma'am, actually I heard.
Okay, so maybe those parts you guys could take from the recording. What do you say?
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Sure.
Well, anyway, I was just talking about the story basically. So, yeah. Anyway, so where was I? Copying. Yes. So his job was to copy the Encyclopedia Britannica. So he had to start with the alphabet A, and at the end of every week he would be paid £4. Understand? So the work was going on like that. He had made quite some money and everything of that sort. And then suddenly, one day when he goes to the place, he finds a piece of white cardboard on the on the door that says the Red-Headed League is dissolved. October 9, 1890. That is about it. Okay. And he wonders what this is all about. Okay, and he's quite upset. And immediately, Holmes and Watson begin laughing. But this man gets offended. Jarvis Wilson gets offended, and they're like, no, don't get offended. Now tell us more about it. And he's like, he went to find Duncan Ross, and Duncan Ross was not the name of the person. It was somebody called William Morris, is what the nearby shops people had told him. It's somebody called William Morris. Understand? So then, anyway, he went to that particular new office that is supposed to be of William Morris, and there also there was nobody there. Okay. So then he said, so Holmes asked him, then what did you do? He said, well, then I just went home and asked my assistant what I'm supposed to do. But assistant said I can't do anything about it. I should just wait to hear something, maybe a letter or something will come. But then I'm a man of action. I can't bear to sit around waiting. So I came to you because I heard that you helped people. So I just came to you. Okay. So then, they understood everything by that. And then Holmes asks him about Vincent's fall. And he says, yeah, he's not that young a man, but he wants to learn the job. So he came to me. It's been a month right now. Um, and that is about it. Nothing else. I know nothing else about it. Okay. And he says, okay, does this man have a small white splash on his face? And have you ever seen ears? Have they been pierced for earrings? He's like, yes, there was a piercing. He said gypsies did it for him when he was a young man, a young boy. And he said, yeah, I thought as much. I thought as much. Okay, fine. No problem. We will look into the matter. They say. Okay. And they let him go. And then Wilson allows him to he and Wilson go off on a walk. Okay. And what happens is that he they go out on a walk, and then they come to the establishment of Jarvis Wilson, and there he stands in front of the office and hits the pavement very hard some 2 3 times with the stick, and then he goes up to the door and knocks, and it was opened by a bright clean shaven young man who to whom Holmes asks, how do we get to the Strand, which is a place in London, and it says third right, fourth left, and the man closes the doors. Okay, and Watson asks him, "You wanted to take a look at his face, isn't that the matter?" And he says, "No, I wanted to look at his knees, his trousers. Why?" He's like, "I saw what I wanted to see." He said, "Why did you beat on the pavement?" He's like, "This is not the time for observation. Now, so this is a time for observation, not for talking. Now, let us just check around and let us see what is behind and in front and everything of that sort." And they walk around the entire place, and we have given a quite a good description of the locality. Okay, and he looks at the shops that are there and the establishments that are there. So there is Mortimer, the tobacconist. Then there is a newspaper shop. Okay, then there is the Coburg branch of the City and Suburban branch, a bank. Then there is, of course, a vegetarian restaurant, a couple of other places, etc. He's like, okay, this is very, very interesting. And he says, now let's go for a music concert, and you must come to my place by around 10 or so. And we have to go, and it's very serious. Okay, we have to come back to Coburg Square. It's very serious. He's like, we will need some help. Okay, so when by the time this man Watson goes at night to see Holmes, there are already two more people over there. One is a police officer, and the other one, the police officer's name is Peter Jones, and the other person was Mr. Merriweather, who works with the suburban bank. Understand? Yes. Now, that is when he talks about this person called John Clay. Okay, murderer, thief, smasher, forger. Okay, and he's quite the master criminal, a very intelligent man. Okay, now his father was a royal duke. He himself has been to Eton and Oxford. A very cunning fellow. Okay. And he says that it's a very difficult thing to get your hands on him. Okay, yes. Now, all of this is said and done and everything of that sort. And they set off in the carriage. They go to this place, but they go to the bank actually speaking, and they're waiting there in the strong room. Okay. Now, when they wait in the strong room, the reason for why they are sitting there becomes quite clear. Okay, the French gold. Okay, that is considering the state of economics, they had brought in bullion or French gold, and it was all there. Okay, and there are like in each crate there is like 2000 napoleons. A French currency is packed and it's kept over there. Okay, and there has not been so much of money ever in one single branch, so anybody who comes to rob it will make a clean sweep of it. So by now we know what is going on, understand? So by the time it is quite some time and late at night, what happens is there is a small crack in the floor of the bank, and then the crack widens, and gradually one man jumps out of that, and then there is one more red-headed man who jumps out of that. So that person is of course Duncan, who we also know as William Morris, and the other person is none other than Vincent Spaulding. Okay, so both of them are out there, and of course the police and Holmes capture them, and of course the mystery is solved then and there. Why they had started the Red-Headed League itself was to ensure that our this man Jabez Wilson leaves his establishment so that they can do this tunnel digging, and they dug a tunnel between the suburban bank and Jabez Wilson's establishment. And when he was not there, they completed the tunnel, and that day, the day that they were going to rob the bank, they just dissolved the Red-Headed League. Okay, and because they do not need to put up with the pretense anymore. Understand? Yes. So that is about it. And then what happens is that Wilson asks him, sorry, Watson asks him, how did you know that the robbery is going to happen today? So because they closed the Red-Headed League. If they hadn't dissolved it, we would never have known. But they closed it because they no longer, it did not matter to them anymore if Wilson was going to be in the establishment or out of the establishment. It's as simple as that. And he said Saturday would be the best day for them to commit the robbery because I could give them Sunday, because nobody would go to the bank on Sunday, so nobody would discover that the robbery had happened. So this is all the reason why I expected that the robbery would happen today. Okay. Then he's like, so Watson is full of admiration. He says, you have reasoned it out so beautifully and everything is sequential and so on. And to which, rather airily, in a nonchalant fashion, Watson says, well, it has saved me from ennui or boredom, the sameness, the banality, the mundaneness of life. Okay, he's like, alas, I feel that now this mystery is solved. I can feel the boredom seeping back. So see, the thing with Holmes is that he needs constant stimuli. So it's the absence of this stimulus that leads him to become very cagey, very upset and antsy, which kind of makes him take opium to dull his senses, or cocaine sometimes to dull his senses. Okay. Anyway, so he says that it helps me to relax, but now I can feel the boredom seeping back in. And he says my life is spent in one long effort to escape from the commonplaces of existence. So from these mundane banalities of existence, I managed to escape. So that is why these things are very important to me. I solve mysteries not because I need the money, but it is because it keeps me from being bored. And Watson says, "Oh, you are such a kind man, you are a benefactor of the race." He's being sarcastic, and then Holmes shrugs his shoulder and says, "Well, perhaps after all, it is of some use." I mean, some use comes of it, because Lo say rien, Louvre say tout. Okay, that is Gustave Flaubert once wrote to George Sand. That is, the man is not important, the work is. That's what. So it ends with that. So he tries to show that it is not him that is important or relevant. It is the work that he does that is important. And on that note, the story comes to an end. Understand? So if you think about it, apart from the fact that all the let's say regular elements of a Sherlock Holmes mystery is present in it. Keen powers of observation, a rather seemingly innocuous beginning, an elaborate smoke screen of events that build up, and then finally the solving of the mystery, which tells us that it is nothing direct but something even more insidious than one imagines. And the kind of idea that there is something more to things that what meets the eye. See, that is one of the things about Sherlock Holmes stories. It is not about solving that mystery and being done with it. There is always, a kind of an underlying message that things are not what they always seem to be. That there is something more to seemingly innocuous, seemingly unrelated matters are actually connected together by a very, very minute thread or chain of events that you must be sharp enough, observant enough to notice. Understand? So all of that is there, but at the same time, when you think about it, there is also an indication of the socio-cultural milieu of England at that point of time. See, 1890, which means that the effects of the Industrial Revolution were seeping in. There were people coming in from all parts of England to London, flocking, looking for job. Unemployment was at an all-time high. There were people like Vincent Spalding, uh, if he were a real assistant, there were people willing to work at half wages. When somebody puts an ad in the paper for a red-headed man needed to do some very minor job, there are seas of red-headed men. Holmes, that is Conan Doyle talks about people of different shades, copper, Irish setter, this, that, all those kind of shades of hair. Wherever you see, for streets and streets were filled. And when Duncan Morris looks out of the window and says that the vacancy has just been filled, a collective groan goes up from all those people who are standing out in the streets, which points to the rather desperateness of these men who are seeking jobs. Understand? So, what we also see is the kind of, locales of London, the way that shops are there side by side, and the bustling trade and commerce that goes on in these places. The very fact that there is a pawnbroker whose business is not doing well, probably because people don't have much to pawn. That could be one thing, or the second could be that he does not actually have money to give to the people who want to pawn things. Understand? So it's an interesting society where this is a business. Okay, pawnbroking is a business, and somebody comes to learn this kind of thing. So what we see is a London where the luxuries of music exist alongside the sufferings that are caused by the lack of employment and the other after effects of the industrial revolution. Understand? So it's not just the solving of a mystery that Sherlock Holmes brings you. The Red-Headed Men also points to very, very relevant aspects of urban as well as the socio-cultural, economic impact that the Industrial Revolution of the times had made. Okay. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to know or ask me? Okay. So I'm going to stop recording for the time being.